Welcome to my new video about LINQ. Today I will introduce you the join function. Before you watch this video, make sure you have watched the other LINQ videos. You can find the videos in my channel under playlist, LINQ Query. Let's start. Join function helps us to merge different tables with each other. The merging works using a key. This key can be only one column, but it can also be several columns. In this video I will explain the examples using one column. Before we start with the join function, let's understand what parts this function consists of, and what each part means. Join generally has two parts, inner and outer. Outer join has three parts, left outer join, right outer join, full outer join. What is the difference between these four functions? I will explain this using the following example. Suppose we have two sets, A and B. A has the following numbers and B has the following numbers. We want to calculate the inner join. Inner join means that we only get the numbers that are in both A and B. In our example, the numbers 3 and 4 are in both A and B. That means, if we implement the inner join function, we only get the numbers 3 and 4 as output. Let's continue with the outer join function. First, left outer join. This means that we not only take the numbers that are in A and B, but also the numbers that are only in A. This means that our left outer join for the sets A and B is 3 and 4, because they are in A and B, but also 1 and 2 because they are in A. Right outer join is basically the same as left outer join. The difference here is that we take the numbers that are in A and B, but also the numbers that are only in B. The output here is 3 and 4 because they are in A and B, but also 5 and 6 because they are only in B. The last function is full outer join. Here we take the numbers that are in A and B and the numbers that are only in A or only in B. The output here is 3 and 4 because these are in A and B. And also 1 and 2 from A, and 5 and 6 from B. This was an introduction to the join function. But what does this function look like in reality? How can we use this in UiPath? I will show you right away. But before we start with UiPath, I will show you what the LINQ query looks like with a join function. First I start with inner join. The query consists of 6 parts. Bracket at the beginning and bracket at the end. Within these brackets we have the other 4 parts. The first part is from statement. Here we define a variable for the rows of the first table. Then the preposition in, and then the name of the first table. The next part is join statement. Here we define another variable for the rows of the second table, then the preposition in again, then the name of the second table. The next part is on statement. Here is the condition, how we want to join the two tables. We want to join the tables using a column. For this we take the variable of the first table with the name of the column. You can also use the column index. Then we set equals function to compare. Then we do the same for the second table. We take the variable, then the name of the column. The last part is select statement. Here we want to select the data in order to get it as output. To do this, we set the following, the name of the output table, then rows function, then add function. Then we select the columns from the two tables. Here you can select which column should be present in the output table. At the end after the bracket, we set the function, copy to data table, to get the output as data table. Before we continue with the other functions, let's implement the inner join in UiPath. I have 2 tables here in Excel. Both tables have the column, city ID. This is the key, which we can use to join the both tables. We want to get 3 columns in the output table. City ID and city name from the first table. And zip code from the second table, where the ID is the same in the both tables. I want to write the join table in this range. First copy the Excel path, to use it later in UiPath. Add read range activity to read the first table from Excel. Enter the Excel path here. Enter the range of the first table. Create variable for the table. Copy and paste the read range activity to read the second table. Set the range of the second table. Create variable for the second table. Create an output variable from type data table. Add build data table activity to create the columns of the output table. Create the following columns. Add an assign activity to write the query. I will write the query as I explained it before. The query is ready. Let's explain it again. First we get the rows from the first table. Then the rows from the second table. After that we set the condition, how we want to join the tables. I used the city ID column as a key. After that I selected the columns from the both tables. I selected the columns, city ID and city name from the first table. And the column, zip from the second table. At the end I used the function, copy to data table, to get the output as data table. Add write range activity to write the output table in Excel. Enter the Excel path. Set the range. Write the table variable. Check the option Add Headers, to write the column headers in Excel. Now we can run the code to see the result. As you can see, we have the table in Excel. We have only the rows from the first table, where we have matches for them in the second table. For example, 8 and 9 doesn't appear in the output table, because we don't have any matches in the second table. So the first join function is done. Let's continue with the next functions. First I will show you the query with outer join function. I will explain left outer join and right outer join. Both are the same. The query consists of 7 parts. Bracket at the beginning and bracket at the end. Within these brackets we have the other 5 parts. The first one is, from statement. Here we define a variable for the rows of the first table. Then the preposition in, then the name of the first table. The next part is, group join statement. Here we define another variable for the rows of the second table. Then the preposition in, then the name of the second table. The next part is, on statement. Here we set the condition, how we want to join the tables. We use the variable from the first table with the column name. We could also use the column index. Then the function equals to compare. Then the variable from the second table with the column name or the column index. After that, we set a new variable for the group data. The next part is, from statement. Here we get the data from the group data using a new variable. This group contains only the columns from the second table. After the variable we set the preposition in, then the name of the group variable. After the name we set the function, default if empty. This function gives the data as output, if we have data. If we don't have data, we get an empty value. The next part is, select statement. Now we want to select the data. For this we set the name of the output table. Then the function rows. Then the function add. Now we can select the columns, which we want to have as output. For this we use the variable of the first table with the column name or column index. To get the data from the second table, we need to use the variable of the group data. Here we use the function if. The statement looks like this. We have a condition, then, else. The condition checks if we have a value in the group. If not, we set the value empty. If it is not empty, we take the value from the group. At the end after the bracket, we set the function, copy to data table, to convert the output to data table. Let's now switch to UiPath to implement the both functions there. I will start with left outer join. First copy the build data table activity. I will write a comment here. Create a new output variable. Add an assign activity. I will write a comment for this activity also. Now let's start writing the query for left outer join. Let's explain the query again. We first get the rows from the first table. Then the rows from the second table. After that we set the condition. I used the city ID column to join the both tables. Here is a new variable for the group data. After that, we take the values from the group data using the new variable. At the end we select the columns, which we need as output. We take the city ID and city name columns from the first table. We take the zip code from the second table using the group data. If we don't have a value, we get an empty value, else we get the value from the column. After the brackets we convert the output to data table. Copy the right range activity to write the new table in Excel. Change the output table variable. Change the range. Now I will run the code to see the result. As you can see, we have the table in Excel. We now have more results than the inner join. We have all rows from the first table. The third column doesn't have values in all rows, because 8 and 9 are not available in the second table. Now let's continue with the right outer join. First copy the build data table activity. Create another variable for the output. Add an assign activity to write the query. I will add a comment for this activity. Let's start writing the query. As I mentioned before, left outer join and right outer join are the same. The difference is only which table is the first table and which table is the second table. So we can use the same query as before. We only need to switch the tables. So first we take the rows of the second table. Then the rows of the first table. Then we set the condition. I used the city ID column to join the tables. Then I create the group variable. After that we take the values from the group data using the new variable. At the end we select the rows, which we want to get as output. We get the city ID column from the second table. The city name from the grouped data. The zip column from the second table. Then I convert the output to data table. We have here an error. Okay, I used the wrong variable here. I should use the variable a instead of variable b, because the variable a is for the rows of the second table. Now the query is ready. Copy the right range activity to write the new table in Excel. Change the data table variable. Change the range. Now I will run the code to see the result in Excel. As you can see, we have the new table here. We have all rows from the second table. The second column doesn't contain values in all rows, because some rows have no matches with the first table. This function is also finished. Let's continue with the last function, full outer join. Full outer join is nothing more than left outer join and right outer join together. That means, we should just merge the two tables. After the merge we should remove the duplicate rows. Then at the end we have the table for full outer join. I want to write the new table then in sheet 2. As you can see, the sheet is now empty. First add merge data table activity. Then create an output variable. We have here the table for right outer join. And here the table of left outer join. I will add both tables to the activity. After running this activity, we will get all rows of both tables in the third table. Add an assign activity to remove the duplicate rows from this table. I will use the same query as in the other LINQ videos on my channel. Let's now explain this query. We get the rows from the merge table. I group the data in this table using the column ID. ID is the column name in this table, which I defined in the build data table activity in previous steps. After that I get only the unique rows from this table. At the end I convert the output to data table. So the query is ready. Copy the write range activity to write the new table in Excel. Change the sheet name. Change the table variable. Change the range. Now the code is ready. I will run the code now to see the result in Excel. As you can see, we have a new table in sheet 2. We have here all rows from both tables. Some rows have empty values, because full outer join gives us not only the matched rows, but also the rows, where we don't have any matches. We are at the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed the video and could help you. If you like my videos, please like and subscribe to see my new videos.